Hello BookTube, hello friends, welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth and I am here today in my local library and I am so excited to bring to you a very special video today because an old friend of mine is in the house. It is Jack Castle, best-selling author of science fiction and fantasy books, and I have read almost all of his books. They are fantastic, and he's in town today because he's going to be doing a program here at our library, and so while he's here, I said, hey, let's do a video. So he's somewhere talking to the librarians and everything, and I just kind of wanted to go ahead and, get all this intro stuff out of the way, but I've got some of his books set up here, and so as soon as he can get over here, then we are going to do a quick little interview, and I want you to get to know him. So let me see. I'm in the library, and I can't yell too loud, but Jack, come here.
Okay, all right.
Hey!
Hi guys, hi everybody out there. Sorry, I was just talking to the librarians, and it's so good to see you.
I know, we haven't seen each other in like how many years? Probably
22 years, we saw each other last.
Yes,
and
yeah. We've been chatting.
It was at a theme park, but I don't think we're supposed to say, so we'll just say theme park.
It's okay. He's worked at a lot of theme parks. I've just worked at one, and I was telling him I usually just tell you guys I worked at a theme park. Y'all can figure it out if you really want to know. You can figure it out. But anyway, so let's have a seat and let's chat about your books.
Okay, glad to be here.
Oh my goodness. So before we get started talking about current books, I wanted, because this is BookTube, so I wanted to ask you just a little bit about your history of reading, because all of us, pretty much everybody who's watching are readers.
Right.
And we want them to read your books, but tell us what you like to read. Like, did you read as a kid? What got you into reading?
I've always loved reading. I think I read Stephen King way too young. Way too young.
I hear a lot of people say that.
Yeah, and it terrified me. It was one of those cases where you put it down, but you have to know. You have to know what happens next.
Right.
The thing I loved about Stephen King was he always started with the character. There wasn't this world building you see now, and oh, by the way, there's some characters in it. He always really got you to care about that character, and then it was like you were behind the character's eyes and you saw that world through their eyes. You discovered it with them. I loved Stephen King as a kid. I loved Michael Crichton.
I have read Lost World.
I loved his. It's funny you say Lost World and not Jurassic Park.
No, I've read them both actually.
Yeah.
Now I say that. I always think of Lost World first, but yeah, I have read Jurassic Park.
But what's funny is if you guys haven't read Lost World because the movie was not so great, Jurassic Park was great.
Yeah.
Lost World is fantastic.
Yeah.
I actually got the feeling that they kind of told him, look, Michael, Jurassic Park did fantastic. We want you to write a sequel. And he just was, because he was already doing other things, right? He had ER, he was writing Sphere, he wrote all these fantastic books. But he did such a good job on Lost World.
Yeah.
He did, it was like effortless, and it really showed. It's one of my favorites that most people don't talk about is Lost World. So I love Stephen King. I loved Michael Crichton. I actually like James Rowlands. He's like a Michael Crichton light. And James Rowlands is if you like adventure, he's a good one. And of course, anything that had an Alice in Wonderland, Twilight Zone feel, I just loved it. I loved reading. I don't think I ever not.
When you read Stranger World, you'll see that influence.
Yeah,
I think
big time
in Stranger World. Yeah. So, awesome, that's great. And you mentioned Stephen King. I have yet to read a Stephen King. I've watched some of the movies, but I have The Stand on my shelf at home, looking at me.
That
in all of its giant glory. And if I ever read a Stephen King, that'll be it.
That's the one to read. Okay. That is the one to read. If you can only get through one Stephen King book, because they are pretty terrifying. And there's a lot of they're rough. It's not for. I wouldn't recommend Stephen King to kids, for example. The Stand is his best work.
Cool.
I think a lot of he doesn't think so, but he thinks The Dark Tower is his best work. But The Stand.
All right. Yeah. Very good. So I want to talk about this book right here.
Europa Journal. Yeah.
This was your first book, your debut novel. Mm-hmm. You can find this in bookstores, Amazon. It's on Audible.
Kobo. I don't even know what Kobo is. Do you?
I never use that.
Yeah,
But I've
Kobo.
used everything else I have used.
Kobo
So,
was
yeah.
sorry.
So, Europa Journal
Yes.
is just a fantastic science fiction time travel adventure. That's kind of how I would.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how I would
All right. Yeah.
classify it. So I understand, and I haven't heard this story, that there's a really interesting story about this getting published. So
Yes.
tell us about
Yes. Europa Journal was the book that started everything. It was 2015, and I was throwing away all my manuscripts. So I had written manuscripts for the past 20, 25 years. Other police officers, other military
that. I
officers.
forgot to tell you he was a police officer.
They would decompress in different ways that I necessarily didn't, partake. And so I would go back and I would work on these stories. I think that was how I dealt with a lot of things. And certainly I would use whether it was as a stuntman or as a police officer or being in the Arctic, I would use these experiences and I would put them in the books. Well, after doing this for 20, 25 years, I'm in the kitchen and I'm throwing away 20, 25 years of manuscripts in the trash. And my wife walks up and she says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Netflix. Nobody reads books anymore, it's Netflix."
Don't say that on BookTube.
No, it's okay, because stay with us. Don't check out yet. Don't go check out Netflix yet. So she goes, "Well, before you do that, why don't you send one in? Why don't you find a publisher and send one in?" And so that's what I did. I applied.
So had you never tried that before?
I never had. No.
You were just going to throw them away without even trying?
I really didn't think I was good enough. I really didn't think, I thought the market was so saturated. Okay. And then I felt like less and less people were reading books, because of Netflix. And don't get me wrong, I love Netflix too. In fact, Stranger World, Netflix, that might be happening sooner than I think. But we can talk about that in another interview. But I really didn't think it was going to happen. So I ended up doing a lot of research. It's actually more difficult to find a publisher, land a publisher, than it is to write a book, by far.
Sure, yeah.
So I used I applied the same methodology I used when I was with the Joint Terrorism Task Force, in that I did a lot of research. And I called a lot of people. Like, I don't accept what's in a book, because most of the how-to books on publishing were written by people who had never been published. Isn't that shocking? So you look
Those
and
who
you're
can't teach.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I want to talk to people who are actually, publishers, agents, etc. So that's what I did. And I used all that knowledge, and I wrote a query letter, a cover letter, a book proposal, etc. And I sent one in. I matched myself up with the largest sci-fi fantasy publisher in North America, sent it off, and I thought, that's it. I did it. I made my wife happy. I mailed the book off.
That's important. Make your wife happy.
I agree. Yeah. So, long story short, 2 months later, I get an email, and it's from the publisher, and they said, "We loved your book." I never got that cliche phone call. I never got that, "Hi, I'm publisher, and I'm going to publish your book." And I never got that.
Nothing
It was,
schmoozy.
yeah, it was an email. So I read the email, and I read the contract that they had attached, and they said, get with your lawyer or your agent, sign it, get it back, just because we'd like to fast track this thing. So I thought it was a fake. But I kept rereading it, and I was like, wow, this is a really good fake, because at the time there was a lot of phonies out there.
Sure.
So I ended up, replying and signing the contract, etc. And they said just so the publisher actually called me himself, and the owner of the publishing company, to be more precise. And Brian said, he said, just so you know, it normally takes about a year to see your book on a bookshelf. It was on the bookshelves in 2 months, 2 months later, and which was about a month ahead of what we thought the best possible timeline could be. And I was working at another theme park, I'm allowed to say what theme parks I've worked at.
I'm allowed to say, I just don't.
So
I haven't got my retirement money yet. I want to make sure I don't give anything.
So I was at Silverwood Theme Park doing a stunt show, playing as Marshall, and having a lot of fun doing it. And everybody who knew how to read Amazon stats, I didn't know. I didn't know how to read Amazon stats. They're like, look at your Amazon stats. And I'm like, what's an Amazon stats? And as I'm doing fights.
Is that those little scanners that booksellers have and they like
That
scan?
is part of it. That's
Okay,
a book scan.
okay.
But if you look at Amazon books and you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see statistics.
Okay.
You know? And ideally, you want to be number one. Like J.K. Rowling, of course, Stephen King, they're number one in their genres, etc. all the time, right? Usually it's about the same 50. They're kind of number one. So the cast on the train is like, look at your phone, your stats, you know, as I'm doing fights and falls, etc. So I finally get a chance to look, and they had to teach me how to look at Amazon stats. So I look at the stats, and it's the top 100 in the world. So then we're all joking about wouldn't it be crazy if it was number one? And throughout the day, it's like number 50, number 38, number 4. And then that night, it was number 1. And I got a call from the publisher, and he said, hey, congratulations, your book is the number 1 best-selling book on Amazon right now.
Oh my goodness.
So you can imagine I was just like,
what?
You know, I just was, are you kidding me?
Wow.
And it was life-changing, of course. And it's been a roller coaster ever since. Yeah.
Wow. And I love this book. It's on, we were just talking, you guys know, I listen to audiobooks. How many audiobooks did I listen to last year? Like
1 million.
330. And I don't think I've actually listened to this on audio. He was telling me about the narrator, that she's fantastic. So I've definitely got to listen to this Europa Journal on audio, because I read it before the audiobook was ever done.
Yeah.
And so it's time for a reread. But now we've talked about Europa Journal, or re-listen.
There we go.
So he's got this awesome series called Stranger World, and right now there's 4. He's got another one that's coming out soon, which I think we're going to get a sneak peek of.
What?
And then maybe, and
a
then
he's
half done with the next one.
I don't know if we're allowed to do that.
So, anyway, so the first book is Stranger World, right here. And then I've got here Stranger Origin, which is a prequel, but you don't want to read that one. You got to go in publication order. That's what I think. So Stranger World, and then Stranger Realm, then Stranger Tides, then Stranger Origin, and then what's coming out next? Well, okay. First, you want to just tell us a little bit about. I kind of classify it as sort of theme park gone wrong, and that is something that Jack knows well. Is theme parks.
Yes.
He's worked in many, and so for him to take that whole theme park idea and translate it into this crazy messed up book. World.
That's a good way of putting it. Yes.
Is really cool. So tell us a little bit about it.
I love the way. I think my favorite thing about Stranger World is because people always want to know what's your favorite book. It's always going to be Stranger World. It doesn't matter if I write another book and it becomes a movie or whatever. It's always going to be Stranger World because how it came about. So when my daughter was 8, she became bedridden, and my wife was actually away in Alaska at the time, and I had to take care of her. And she would wake up only in the evening, and that was it. And I would feed her dinner. And you can imagine how helpless I must have felt, to see that. And so what I would do is I remembered this old outline in my filing cabinet, and there's a lot of them. Right, I have like 22 books safely buried in the backyard.
Did you end up throwing any away that day, or did you save them? Did you pull them back out? Okay, good.
Yeah. My wife actually saved them.
Okay, good.
She actually pulled them all out of the trash and saved them all. So with Stranger World, I remembered a long time ago when we were working at the theme park.
Of which will not be named.
Yeah, I was in the tunnels, and I was thinking, wouldn't it be weird if all that stuff above us, all those fantastical creatures, all those made-up things, what if all that stuff was real? What if all those things that we meet every day was real? And worse, what if they were kind of running things? Humans were just kind of secondary things. And that premise stayed in my filing cabinet for about 20 years, and I never touched it. So I pulled that out, and I looked it over, And the thing I added was the father, who was a pilot, killed in Afghanistan. he wakes up in this stranger world, and he has to find his daughter. And my favorite thing that people tell me about Stranger World is, wow, the relationship between dad and daughter is so real, you know.
Because at the time, your daughter was bedridden, you said, right?
Yes. So what would happen...
And I didn't even realize that when I read the book.
What would happen is I would read her a chapter a day about the dad trying to find this daughter in this stranger world, and I would say something like, I can't open the darn door. And my daughter would say, Dad, we don't say darn, you know. and I was like, oh, that's good, you know. I gotta write that down. So all this stuff between the dad and daughter is absolutely real.
Oh,
because
great.
as we're going through this stranger world together, she's making all these wonderful comments, and I absolutely loved it. And one of the other favorite things is just a real quick close up. If you look at Stranger World right here, I don't know how well that's going to show up. You'll see this dad and the daughter going into the mist. Well, when the cover artist called me up and he said, yeah, I know you have this idea of a dad and daughter going in the mist. What are you thinking? You know, what size, etc. They have a lot of questions. And I said, well, I have a photo of me and my daughter on the beach walking into the ocean, you know. And I sent him that photo. He scanned the photo, made it a silhouette, and that's what you see on the cover.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's actually me and my daughter on the photo.
That's awesome.
So
I love stories like that.
this went on for a little while, and I ended it up, I was actually under contract to finish White Death, another book.
That's a standalone.
That's a standalone. And I was under contract to finish that with my publisher, and it was a lot of fun. I was in the Arctic. I got charged by a polar bear on my first day of work. It was great. But I sent Stranger World to the beta readers, and I said, "Hey guys, I'm working on this little thing. It's for me and my daughter, and it was just meant to be like this fun little thing. Well, it's actually pretty fun, and I would really love to do more of this, but you know, you just don't know."
Isn't that kind of how Winnie the Pooh started out? Of stories for his son.
Did it?
Yeah.
I didn't know
yeah,
that. I didn't know
sure.
that. I love Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
So I'll have to look that up now.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious.
Yeah.
The beta readers who disagree on everything, which is what you want. You want a spectrum of beta readers that disagree. You know, Ryan, for example, Ryan Chittister, he will say things like, you know, it's been like 5 pages and we haven't had any action. So, can you spice this up a little bit?
Yeah.
You know, because I'm falling asleep. And then you have Charles C., who will say things like, I feel like we need to talk about our feelings a little bit more, you know. And then you have to find balance.
Sure,
you know.
sure. So it's great to have all the spectrum to
Yes.
bring it together.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that. And anybody who says you can't please all the people all the time, that's true, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Because most of all, I want people to have fun in Stranger World. But they all came back, and for once, they all agreed independently, because I don't let them talk to each other. You know, I don't want them to be influenced by each other.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So they all came back at the same time. They said, stop whatever you're doing and write Stranger World. Write the series. I will buy every book that Stranger World comes out. You know, I'm on board. And it's been, let's see, Stranger World, Stranger Realm, Stranger Tides, and then a lot of people ask me, where did Stranger Origins come from? It's from people writing me. Because people go, look, I get it. Stranger World's this weird place. How did it start?
Yeah.
Who's Henry Stranger? You know, what was the origin story behind the lieutenant? Which is her favorite character, by the way. She's a hologram.
Yes. No, Jeeves is my favorite.
Oh, Jeeves! You ever eat cats? He's a gargoyle butler who may or may not eat cats. It hasn't been substantiated whether he does or not. So don't send the hate mail. We don't actually know if he eats cats.
Yes.
So I love hate mail. I love it. I love any kind of mail. JackCastleBooks at AOL.com. You want to send it? That's where you send it. So that's where Stranger Origins came from.
You really don't have an AOL account, so do you?
I do.
Do you? I do too.
I do,
But
yeah.
when you said that, I thought, send the hate mail to my old email.
No, that's a real email. I know, it's ridiculous. I'm sorry.
My husband and I both still have our AOL.
I'm sorry
email, too.
for all those young people out there who barely know what AOL is, but it's JackCastleBooks@AOL.com.
Okay,
If you have
good
questions
deal.
about writing or the books, please send them in. Don't send me your manuscripts. I'm not allowed to read them. But if you have any questions about getting published, I'm all ears.
Very cool.
So yeah, that's how that all started.
Very cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, before my phone cuts off, which it probably will at about the 25-minute mark, I can't even see from here where it is. We should probably wrap this up. But you said maybe we could get a glimpse of
It
the
would be
new...
so funny if your phone caught off right when I go to show them. All right, you guys can't show this to anybody because no one is seeing this. It's not the final version. It is the what we call a mock-up.
Yes. Okay.
So it's a work in progress, but this is most likely.
Now, would you call this book 5 or book 4?
I would call it 4.
Because Stranger Origins is book 0.
Yes.
Basically. Okay.
And they don't let you do that on Amazon. Like they don't
really?
let you say they need.
On Goodreads you can.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Origins is 0, and then World Realm Tides, and then Desert, and it's all in the first.
So Stranger Desert.
Stranger Desert, and it's gonna make a lot of people sad. It's the last act before the last book, so it has to be.
Okay.
You know,
It's the penultimate book.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, so you ready?
Yes, we're ready.
You haven't even seen this.
Oh, I kind of did.
You
while ago
glimpsed
when
it.
pulled
You glimpsed it. Okay.
That's okay.
All
I'll
right,
look
here
at
we
it on
go.
the video.
This is Stranger Desert. Okay. You see the lieutenant there. Yes, I am pronouncing that correctly. Lieutenant, it's explained in the book. And then you see Her Majesty's airship, the Dauntless, scattered across the desert. And of course, you can't have a Stranger World book without a lamppost connected to the lamppost man. So, sorry that I don't know how well you guys can see that all, but sorry
Awesome.
about that.
Thank you so much.
That first
for
time.
doing it.
First time on the internet.
Guys,
right here.
Right
Yeah.
here
So-
on my little corner of BookTube. That's
Yes,
so awesome.
yeah.
Yay. Thank you so much for sharing that.
My
So, I know that Jack probably needs to get out of here and do bigger and better things. And I just want to sign off here and tell you thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much, Jack, for being here today. This was amazing.
Thank
It's
you
so
for
fun to
having
see
me.
you after 20-some-odd years.
Yes.
And that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.